first question is, what's the first thing someone just starting to implement stewardship practices in their church facility should consider?
The first thing I tell them is they need to read and trust it, so that they can have a conversation with their church leadership team to find out if they're all on the same page about what it means to be a facility steward, but how are we going to do the business of stewardship? Because everybody thinks they know what it is, and they don't. They're not on the same page. So,
well, I take it a step further, or maybe more practical. That's just what I tend to be, which is you got to know what you have. You can't steward anything effectively if you don't know what you're stewarding. So it's more than just going, oh, I have a building. It's oh, I have this type of HVAC unit. It's this old. This is the model serial number. I have this much roofing. This is how old it is. I have this much asphalt. Those things. And it's data gathering, which is not fun and it's tedious, but without it, you can't properly plan for what you are stewarding and what the future holds.
Yeah, the two really go hand in hand. You've got the practical side, but if you don't have a philosophical approach to how you're going to handle the physical side, for me, the other piece of it is facing reality. Okay, I have this, and it's in this condition. These are the expectations of what our leadership says we're supposed to do with our facility and how they want to use it, and for community use or for outreach. So if you don't understand the expectations and you don't understand your current paradigm, it's hard to know what things do I need to do.
One of the things you have to realize is you're not unique. And that's bad for some churches to hear that. When it comes to stewardship and where you're at from a deferred maintenance, delayed project or standpoint, we know from our research and from what we've done, you're anywhere from $27 to $36 per square foot behind, meaning that's what you have in deferred and delayed maintenance. And most churches, when they multiply even the lower number, 26, by their square footage, they don't have that in their capital reserve. So part of that being honest is going, okay, we're like everybody else, unfortunately. And this is where we sit. Now it's developing that plan. And here I am, more data, but which units are used most, which units are in most need of replacement, where is the building used most, where do we need to target, what is a life safety issue versus an aesthetic issue. Well, it's nice for everything to look nice. You don't want people to get on your property and get hurt.
well, there's a prioritization that has to happen. But again, going back to entrusted, it helps you determine how do you prioritize that. And even any individual church is going to have their own standards, but life safety is always going to take priority. A leaky roof is going to take priority, especially if it's the worship center. Bathrooms that don't function would be raised priority. Those are the easy ones. When we did the assessments with the Southern Ohio Episcopal Diocese, one of the things that they appreciated about that whole project was that we provide a lot of low-hanging fruit that gives them a chance to just get started with little things that maybe cost very little or nothing, to feel that you have momentum and you have some achievement that you move along, and then you build the enthusiasm. We could do this. We could do better. We could keep doing this. And it might be something as simple as just keeping the shrubs around your building trimmed back to avoid damaging your building, to avoid having vagrants sleeping in the bushes and shooting up drugs. Those are not good signs for welcome to your church, and they just never thought about it. And so we provide a lot of those things, and it's all part of stewardship, but it's starting to peel back the onion.
Yeah, if you've done your reality check and you've looked at the condition, you understand the expectations, you've looked at your budget constraints and your staffing constraints tied to the condition, then to put it in business school talk, you need to do a gap analysis. this is what's expected. This is where we need to be. This is where we are. How do we close the gap between the two? And part of that, again, goes to the prioritization and building a plan of how do I close that gap? And what's going to be the most impactful from a life safety human standpoint, but then what's going to have the most impact on the ministry initiatives that the church wants to fulfill? Because I think all three of us, while we are very myopic in our thinking on facilities, we all three would agree that facilities are not the church. They're a tool to facilitate ministry, but we want it to be done in an excellent way.
Even though that monetary amount is large, again, at 26 at the low end per square foot, even though that's large, we found lots of parishes that were being maintained well simply by volunteers being consistent and coming in and taking care of those small things before they got larger. So really, it's an attitude thing that can really make a big difference. And sometimes I think some of the larger organizations or people in general forget that a dedicated and a motivated team of people will make a huge difference. It's not something you can always just throw money at because that fixes it temporarily. But if you don't change your mindset, if you don't change your culture of your facility to say, we're going to make it, part of our culture to maintain stuff, to take care of it, and not just to think we have to build new, but it was entrusted to us. We're to maintain it. Take that attitude, change that culture. And we saw, again, I think we saw several parishes that were very well maintained, that had very little budget, or almost non-existent budget, didn't have full-time clergy, but the buildings and the facilities were nice, and nicer in some cases in many cases than some of the larger, even very large churches with staffs and multi-million dollar budgets.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one thing that you remind me of is I did two on-site assessments, one after another, over 2 days, and the first was in a kind of a rundown section of the city, and but my thought at first would be, hey, they might want to close this one down, not by just the occurrence of the building, but the neighborhood, everything about it. They didn't have their own priests. They had shrunk down to maybe a handful of members that met in a circle of chairs in their sanctuary. But the team of people that were there had been taking care of the work of the building, and that they had been renting out space in this building so that it was like a community center and a beacon in the community, which is probably what it was 100 years ago. The next day I went to a church in an area surrounded by homes with acreage and $1 million homes, and they had a problem getting any volunteers to do anything, but they didn't have a money problem. And so you can have a people problem or you can have a money problem, and they both can contribute to poor stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
How do you ensure that everything that you do is long-term and not just a one-time thing?
You buy e-space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you don't just buy eSpace, and you check out our awesome professional setup services, and you get it set up because it's about taking that information and that work that you just did and putting it in a system that allows you to monitor it, to maintain it, to schedule it, because it's not a one and done. It's an ongoing process. I paint a wall. There's a life cycle to the life of the paint. It will need to be recoated within X number of years, depending on usage. There is an expected inspection cycle on several things in the church that we identify, and it's a compliance thing where churches need to be compliant for certain life safety and OSHA regulations, things like that. Putting it into a system, that 24/7 employee, which eSpace is, so it can schedule and it can tell you, by the way, you need to do this month. By the way, this is due. You have to have some mechanism that reminds you that you started this work. You have to continually doing it. And it's very similar to discipleship and to evangelism. You don't evangelize and then say, hey, congratulations, and then walk away and never talk to that person again. You develop that discipleship, which says you've started here. You've tasted the milk. You've made the repairs. Now let's continue to grow, take on more, and take in more of the meat, which comes with, again, monitoring and tracking, and quite frankly, telling the story to the people who may not have been part of that renovation process. So you can say, look, this is what we did, and this is what's due and what's coming.
So we teach people how to fish.
A lot of what we can do now and what we're teaching is sometimes it's about investing more in your coatings, in your material, so that you can extend that maintenance interval. We know you're not going to replace the carpet in 8 to 10 years like the manufacturer might says. Well, so buy a better carpet. Okay. And at least it'll look better longer. Buy a better quality paint. It will last longer and look better. But also look at the emerging technology and don't be afraid to research. That's something I think, personally, I think is lacking in a lot of organizations. And quite frankly, it's because a lot of the facility managers don't have time to do the research. But there are new products coming out every day that extend the life, that solve issues that churches face. I mean, it's a commercial property. And to your earlier point, you got to be okay calling it a commercial property because it's a building. It is a commercial building. The church is the people. We know that. While it's sacred because of the activities that are performed or that occur there, it's a commercial property, commercial building. So there are commercial repair products that we need to be willing to look at and go, you know what? Maybe we don't make the hallways and the restrooms super high end. Maybe we make them more industrial because it's easier to clean and it's easier to maintain. And then we can start, again, taking that data and that cycle and saying, what are we spending too much on that is really inconsequential from a maintenance and a stewardship standpoint? Again, I struggle when I go into a restroom that has really fancy tile and is made to look like a Four Seasons hotel or whatever.
Ritz. Well,
Yeah.
you make a good point, but I'll push back a little bit on that. They are a commercial building, but in a typical, what people have in mind when you hear commercial building is a large structure that has tenants that pay fees that cover the deferred maintenance or cover, so they don't have to defer maintenance, so that they're covering the things that keep up with preventative maintenance and the replacement of capital items, and they know that they're going to replace the HVAC units, and they've got a timeline on all that. Churches don't have an assessment that they can do without doing the big ask. When you do the big ask and it never goes well.
What else should facility stewards know?
I would say we're talking a lot about hard skills and hard data, which is easy to research, easy to do. You can find it. There's subject matter experts that can answer questions on a lot of these things. But any good facility steward is also going to have to work on their soft skills. And that's learning communication, how to talk both up and down the chain of command, how to train, how to implement training protocols, how to utilize software, how to take eSpace and look at, in the future, maybe incorporating your HVAC controls within eSpace so that it's run by the events, not by me having to plug in a system. And just looking ahead, and a phrase I've used before is part of the job of a facility manager, facility steward, is to consider solutions for problems that haven't occurred yet. And that's part of that soft skill of going, okay, I don't know exactly where I'm going or where the church is going ministerially, but I know stuff is going to break, stuff is going to need repaired. So what can I do? What can I find to find something, a creative solution? But I would almost call it vision boarding, but I'm not going to call it that. But it's just thinking ahead. But then again, the soft skills, the communication, that's a huge thing because you have to practice your communication with vendors, with your staff, with the rest of your the church body, members, guests, all of those people, and that's a big thing. I think is those soft skills. Many people that go into facility management come from hard skill industries, construction and things like that, where you don't always have to be nice.
Yeah, the word you said is people. And we can do all these facility related things. And a lot of people come into this line of work and they don't realize that they actually have to have people skills. They are your constituents, the people that you are serving in the church by keeping the building maintained and nice and warm and toilets clean. But they're the people that you look to for volunteering when you don't have the budget to hire all the staff you need to maintain it to the level that the expectation is, but the budget isn't. This idea of how do we do these things? How do we get creative? Well, those volunteers have skills in the real world, and they want to have a place to play with them in the church. And so having the ability to kind of weave in and out of those things, I think, is essential to it. It's all part of the overriding stewardship, but it's also part of the facilities ministry. And I think it helps tie in, even if you're just a facilities technician or custodian, understanding that you're in ministry. And if someone stops you and needs prayer, you know what? That's fine. Take the opportunity, because we may be the only ones in the building.
Yeah. Staying on that theme of people, I think it's really important that you, as a facility steward, you understand what the vision, mission, and purpose of your church is, and realize that the tool that you are stewarding is to help accomplish that goal, not your own personal goals.
Sure.
Along with that, you need to be able to then convey to the rest of the ministerial staff that you are there to help them be successful in their ministry initiatives within reason. You know, you're not going to let them blow bubbles with 800 kids in the sanctuary if you've got cloth pews, okay? You're just not going to do that. But if there's something that would make their ministry events successful, which then impacts the community, impacts the kingdom, then that's part of the role as a facility steward, not just to turn a wrench or to schedule people or to make sure that the chemicals are right. Those are all tactical parts of the strategic part of what a church is, and that's to minister to people.